Hey guys, I'm Young Lion here. Welcome to another episode of BMAT Radio. Today we're going to be covering Dev Stream number 68 for the August update number 28 and a few of the changes there. Now this Dev Stream didn't have much in it, so this isn't going to be a very long episode, but I'll make it interesting. I'll make sure that I cover everything in depth. First thing on the list, spawn system changes. Now, with the spawn changes, we're breaking them down into a few things. The spawn, I guess it's like the death screen or whatever. That's going to be changing. So where you don't just have like this JPEG with a number counting down to when you're going to spawn again. They're making it more interesting now. And the first part of that change is going to be the spectator camera. I think that the spectator camera is cool, but I'm seriously not thrilled about it. Yeah, sure, it's a good idea to give us something to sort of look at and interact with, but it's lackluster. Like, out of all the other things that are missing from the game, I thought that focus was going to be more on group support, other important things, but this. I'm just not very happy about it. Truthfully, if you're going to work on that, I think that you might want to start with the algorithm that affects your spawn timer. I don't see how you could spawn into a battle, die once, and then have a 1 minute spawn time. To me, that needs to be worked on. There should be some sort of system in play where, your first time dying, you get 10 seconds, your second time dying, you get 20 seconds, something like that, to where if you're just dying repeatedly, then okay, we're gonna bump you up to 1 minute because this needs to be a slowdown moment for you, something to help you realize that you're doing something wrong and you need to change your tactics. Not the first time you walk on the battlefield, get shot, bleed out, and now bada boom, 1 minute spawn time. So spectator camera just wasn't what I was hoping for in this area. It's like, what made you want to work on that? I'm sure there are other things people are complaining about, but hey, they're giving it to us. So here's a little bit from Mark.
Just to be clear, there's going to be more work done on the spawn system in general, right? Mm-hmm. But this is specifically the spawn screen itself.
Now again, I appreciate that they're working on this because every era of the game needs to feel some love, including the spawn screen. Spectator cameras, I think it is a feature that we can use. We can benefit from it. Of course, some people have brought up how this could be used for cheating, spying. What if someone used it and kind of just peeked beyond the front lines and saw where howitzers were set up and then relayed that information to their teammates, so that way they got an unfair advantage, a bird's eye view of enemy elements that they could just communicate across lines, something they wouldn't have had if they were on the ground. And Mark addresses that
because I know what's going on through all your minds, like, well, that's gonna allow spying and all this stuff, but we've really constrained it to ensure that you can't do any of that stuff.
So clearly this is a work in progress. We're going to have to monitor it. I'll be doing some testing with it, or as much as I can, as much as anyone can. We'll test it to see if we can break it and cheat. And if we can, I'll send those results over to the developers and hopefully they'll be able to patch it and, take away any vulnerabilities in the system. Now, the next part of the spawn system changes is the assigned spawn point locations. And they developed this so that way if, say for instance, you had your FOB built pretty far out on the front lines, and after you were killed, you got that 1 minute spawn time. Within that time, the FOB that you would normally spawn on was now surrounded by enemies. You could then change your spawn point before spawning. That way you don't spawn in on that FOB and get killed immediately. And, Mark, he touches on it a little bit.
There are no players around you, as an example. You can at least view where you're going to spawn, which is helpful in some situations where if a spawn point is overrun, it saves you from having to like spawn and then die and then having to like go back to the home region or something of that sort. It allows you to actually view the location of your spawn, right?
This is a much more welcome change. I do appreciate that part of it. I gotta tell you, that was really nice. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I actually used it a couple times already. And the next part that we're going to move right on into is the ability to use chat while dead. Now, they were also talking about the map posts and things of that nature. I haven't found a very big need for the map posts yet, but being able to use chat while you're dead is pretty good. And they discussed it in the dev blog, but I'm not going to use any clips for it here. It's just a benefit to us. We can use it and communicate certain things that happen. Say if you got another squad that's coming in to the area where you died, you can possibly tell them, hey, look, don't do it again. They've brought in an AC and we don't have the equipment to take care of that. So just fall back and hold positions at whatever checkpoint. All right, let's move into the next change of the dev blog. Inventory system changes. Now, I agree that the inventory system does need some adjustment because small things you can't do, like you can't drag and drop items and rearrange them in your inventory, and everything's kind of very finite. That we're talking about either you have one item or 100 of those items, and one of the biggest areas that they focused on was the unrealistic parts of the inventory where you could walk around with enough materials in your inventory to just spawn in entire houses. You know what I mean? You walk around with like 500 BMATs on you, and you can build a small fort with just the stuff you're carrying in your pockets. So, they addressed it in the dev blog there, and I thought they did a pretty good job of addressing it. But it's going to be interesting how they implement it. They didn't give any details about the implementation of, what are going to be the new changes. Like, are you going to see new UI functionality? Are there going to be more storage spaces on the player, but certain items will not stack on the player's inventory, but they'll stack inside of a truck? Different things like that have not been given, but I assume that it will. I would really love to see how that works, especially for building, because just as an example here, they didn't say this, but I'm just giving you an example from what I gathered from it. Say, for instance, you want to use RMATs to go upgrade something out in the field, or BMATs. You just say BMATs. You want to go build something in the field. Well, if BMATs don't stack in your personal inventory, imagine how hard that's going to be. You're going to have to drive the truck right up to the point where you're going to need to build, take the mats from the truck one by one and build with them. And I thought that would, that's going to hurt the game. I would much rather see something along the lines of you can sort of manufacture these parts using the materials and then take the parts into the field and assemble them on the ground where you want them to be. That's more along the lines where I would like to see it, but then again, the developers have their own vision of where they want to take the game, and I'll just sort of let Mark go ahead and tell you about what he thinks they're going to do with it. They didn't give much details, but this is just his words.
And we want to revamp that to make it a bit more like realistic. There's some very silly things that we want to change for a long time, like the idea that you can carry like hundreds and hundreds of like BMATs that can build up a giant structure. You can just sort of like you can like summon a giant structure just from a backpack. Just makes no sense.
In this next part, he starts to talk about the stackable and non-stackable items and kind of what changes they want to add. He used the term granularity. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but yeah, we'll find out eventually.
That you can carry like 100 like soldier supplies in your backpack also doesn't make sense. We're gonna revamp the inventory system to take that into account, and also we've always been stuck with this really strange constraint between like stackable and not stackable, and the gap in between those two extremes are so huge. It's either like, well, you either have one soldier supply in a slot or 100, it's not a lot to work with there.
No,
right?
it's
So we want to add a bit more like granularity there, so we can make things. There's more options there, so we don't always have to be switching between like the frustrations of like stackable or versus.
Yeah, so I'm fully on board with the inventory changes. I'm interested in seeing what they're going to look like. Again, I gave you some ideas of what I thought about, being able to manufacture a foxhole deployment kit, take it out into the field, and then deploy it. That way you can just transfer it on the back of a truck and, take it out, still use your hammer as part of the deployment process, but you won't need the B-mats to deploy it. You already use the B-mats to manufacture it in the factory or whatever. So I'd really like to see what they come up with. I hope it's something more in line with what I'm thinking about, but if not, hey, we'll find out, and let's try to give the developers our own feedback. So I'll be typing this up and trying to submit it to see if they take that into consideration, but hey, it'll ultimately boil down to what their idea of the game should be. But I hope you guys join me in thumbing up certain ideas so that way they'll know where the player base is on these changes that they want to make. Next item on the list, they started talking about the tech tree system changes. Guys, I'm all up for abolishing the tech tree. All right, I'm just going to give you a quick example as to why I want to abolish the tech tree. Like, I want it completely gone. I would much rather us have some sort of system where we could just walk up and say, I want to invest tech in, say, sledgehammers, right? We're just going to use sledgehammers just for the, at the beginning of the war. We just want to go in and invest in sledgehammers immediately so we can start gathering resources faster, right? And more types of resources. The reason why I would want this to happen is because most people think sledgehammers cost 450 tech. What they don't realize is sledgehammers actually cost 3,575 tech, because you can't just pick sledgehammers. You have to tech all the way up to the sledgehammers, and I went and did some calculations. 3,575 tech just for sledgehammers, just to be able to take a clump of metal, put it on the end of a stick, and you swing it at something. You invented healthcare and weapons of mass destruction well before that, you know what I mean? And you invented cars, all sorts of things, but you needed that long just to get sledgehammers? I mean, it doesn't make much sense. So if they really want to go toward the realistic view of things, instead of having like medical being broken down into the first aid kit, then the bandage, then the trauma kit, this should just be like, a medical package. You invest into the medical package, and once you unlock the medical package, it unlocks all three of those things, the first aid kit, the bandage, and the trauma. Same things with certain weapons packages. Like if they add more sidearms into the game, you should be able to just, go into the sidearm package and get a few, get the sidearms, and then same thing with the rifle package, etc., etc. So I think that that would be a better sort of tech system. Get rid of the tree altogether. Too linear, and it doesn't make much sense the way that it works right now. I mean, 3,575 tech just to put a piece of metal on the end of a stick. It doesn't make any sense. But we'll go ahead and let Mark go ahead and tell you what he's thinking about with the tech system.
And the tech tree, so this one, we're either going to see the tech tree removed or some big changes there. I'm not going to talk too much about it right now, but that's something that we feel like the progress of the technology of the tech tree is a bit too linear now, and I think that's something that we're looking to revamp in a major way.
I'm glad they're looking forward to doing something with the tech tree. I'm more in favor of just getting rid of it altogether. Give us a more simplified, sandbox-oriented tech system, because this is a sandbox, persistent war MMO. So give us something that allows players to decide what they want to invest in, not something the developers tell us we have to invest in order to progress in the war. That's what I want. I also haven't forgotten about the Harvester. Currently, the Harvester is just way too late game. It's just way too late, and we need the harvester a lot sooner. And I'd like to, as a team, as a faction, be able to make that decision to get the harvester earlier versus than when the developers tell me I should have the harvester. All right, let's talk about the production system changes. I was hoping for something much better, but when the developers told us, when Mark specifically said what he thought ought to be the change for the production system, I gotta tell you, I nearly crapped my pants. It was the worst thing I've ever heard, and I was wondering, who was he listening to? Who was he talking to? Is he not one of the developers of the game? Like, he said something to the effect of players weren't allowed, like certain players didn't feel like they had access to certain materials. And I'm like, hello, you're a developer. You made it to where none of us have ownership of anything in the game. Every single thing we create, every other player on the game has access to it immediately. Like, we don't have ownership of anything. How could we possibly keep anybody from having access to something? You can be 1 hour in on this game and go drive a battle tank. There is nothing stopping you. You get so I really wonder who the hell he was talking to, and did he forget he was a developer, or did he forget he hired the developers, or whatever the case may be? It just makes no bloody sense. But let's let him tell you what. We're just gonna let him talk, because it just pisses me off to even think about it.
The production system. So this is something where it's a bit of a touchy subject, because I know that at least we've heard some feedback, especially after update 26. After update 26, a lot of players felt like certain players felt like some groups of players weren't able to gain access to certain like content, and it was only achievable by the clans. This is something that we're looking to address.
Now help me understand here. What content could they possibly be talking about? And when he said certain players, are he talking about just the one-offs that run around and sort of play solo? Because obviously, if you're working in a clan or a large group of organized players with a hierarchical system, as they've taken to calling it, clearly you can organize your resource flow. All right, you can actually bring in your mats. You can systematically produce things and get the items you want and use them effectively. You can actually have a better time in the game, so it would be worth encouraging more people to do this. Instead, he's making it sound like all of a sudden clans are bad because they're being more productive, because they're actually working smarter and not harder. So now he wants to do something about that. And I'm like, what, I keep having this headache when I hear him. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? What do you mean they don't have access? Access to what? What exactly? Tell us. What is it? I don't know.
And this is it's going to be, I think some of the changes that we're exploring right now. I'm not gonna lie, they're a little controversial, or I expect them to be controversial, and probably going to ruffle some feathers. But we feel that these changes that we're exploring right now will help in that regard, and it will bring it more in line with the rest of the game, the philosophy of large number of players that are working together, pushing away from a sense like ownership.
That statement right there is what sent me over. I had to take several breaks during preparing this episode because I needed to just calm down. Ownership of what, Mark? What do we own? All right, tell me, how do I own anything in this game? Tell me, how do I put something aside so that only I can use it? Tell me how to do that, because I damn sure will start using it. All right. Last time I checked, you made sure we never had that feature. Okay. So exactly what is it that we're keeping away from these, selected few you're talking about? All right. That you're willing to change every damn thing for. Tell me, what are we keeping from them? Let me know. I really want to know. All right. So when he's talking about taking away any sense of ownership, it just made my stomach hurt hearing it.
The usual stuff that half the players love and half the players hate. That's one area that we feel like resources are, at least the mining aspect. I don't want to put it in all numbers aside. At least the mining mechanics we feel like are in a good place. So now we want to sort of step up to next part of the logistics chain, which is the production, right?
So you guys heard him, right? You can go out there, mine your asses off, get no XP for it, none whatsoever. You cannot rank up at all for any of that grind you do. Mine for 10 hours straight and never level up. You have to allow someone else, you have to ask someone to stop what they're doing, take time and notice that you've been working hard, and then offer you a command for you to see any sort of reward for all the work you've been doing. All right. And then on top of that, you can't keep any of it somewhere so that you can come back. Like, say, for instance, you mine all night, you put your B mats and R mats aside because you and your group are going to get together later on and try to perform some sort of major, mission, and you can't do that because there's no system in place for you to do that. And they made sure that you can't do that. Somehow players still manage to get it done. I applaud them. You're fighting against this crazy social system they have where everything is everybody's all the time. I don't know how everybody gets it done, but you do a great job of doing it. And he's now talking about taking that away. That's what it sounds like to me. We're going to take away ownership. I feel like I'm losing my mind here. There's already no reward. There's no ownership. There's nothing. And you're going to take more because a few players said they don't have access to content. Right now, any player in the game can go anywhere and take anything they want and do anything with it, and nothing can stop them. What the I just don't know what the hell he's talking about. I feel like I'm losing my mind doing this, so this is a great reason why I have to take breaks from the game from time to time. I hear stuff like this and I think, Grim Dawn, anything but this right now. I can't do this. But enough ranting. I mean, you guys already know I'm frustrated about it. I'm pretty sure many of you are frustrated about it. The rest of the dev blog, they didn't give hardly any details. They just brought up things like they're going to do building system changes, and then he just breezed past it really quickly without giving any sort of detail. And that's why this is going to be a rather short BMAT radio. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Please leave me some feedback. I need to know what you guys think, because I'm sure you can tell I'm frustrated as hell by it, and it's... I don't know. I don't know. You guys have a good one. Just let me know something.